And then I remember around, we had went to church, and it was a little Baptist church in Millington, Tennessee, and the pastor had. We were all sitting in the church, and I reckon there was, I don't know, a couple hundred people in there. And this is a time that I remember praying really, really hard during the tough times of being sick, you know. And this prayer was more of a, why did this happen to me, I guess, you know. And so we're sitting in the church, and it was a Southern Baptist church in Millington, Tennessee. It had pews, you know. And the preacher come out, and he was cool looking. He was thin, and I reckon he's like 6 foot tall and probably 160 pounds. And he had a shiny light gray suit on. And he walked with a really, really nice arrogance and pride, you know. And he came out from behind the platform, and he walks up to the pulpit, you know, and he looks at everybody. And I'm young. I'm, you know, like I said, I'm 6, 7 years old, you know. And I don't know anything about pride or arrogance, but I noticed this guy was really stiff. You know, as he walked, stiff as a board, real proud, kind of arrogant, like he was the smack, you know. And he was the smack. He's the mighty man of God, you know, and to be respected. And so, hey, whatever. And so the man of God comes out, and he looks at everybody, and then he walks around in front of the pulpit, see. And when he walked around the front of the pulpit, he said, I don't know, he said something to the congregation. And when he said something to the congregation, I'm going to tell you the truth. This big heavy, like a blanket of weight of God's glory fell upon the congregation, right? And the preacher, he's stiff, right? And he falls right off the platform onto the altar. And he's rolling around, man, rolling, you know. And he's talking about, and he's holding his stomach, and he's quaking, just jerking and quaking and rolling. I mean, the power of God's all over this cat, right? And he's screaming out, God, help me, God, help me, God, help me, God, help me. And everybody stands up to look at the preacher. And when they stood up to look at the pastor, the power of God hits them, and folks fall over the pews, over the back of the pews. They just drape over the pews like they're dead. Other people fall under the pews. Other people start wailing and crying with all of their hearts, man. I mean, they are crying so loud and with such a passion, right? And I'm sitting right here, and I'm 7 years old, sick as all get out, praying for God to heal me, right? And I remember my stepdad, he's sitting right here beside me, and like I'm kind of tucked under his arm, you know? And he's crying so hard that the tears are flowing out of his face and out of his left eye, and they're hitting me. You know, and I look up at him, and his tears are pouring down on me, you know, and I'm like, gosh, and he's my stepdad. He's in the military, you know, and I'm thinking, gosh, and I called him Dad. I'm thinking, why is my dad crying like this, you know? And I look over, and everybody's crying, and people are rolling under the pews, and they are wailing and crying like with all their heart. Sorry about that. Getting excited here. They're wailing and crying with all their heart, right? And so I look at my mama, and my two sisters are in between us, right? It's my mom, my two sisters, and me. And my two sisters, they just sitting there chilled out like that, you know. And my mom, she's crying, man. I mean, she is just weeping and boo-hooing. And so I sit there, and I'm looking around at everybody. Like I said, there's a few hundred people in there, right? And everyone's crying and rolling under the pews. And it was so deep and so heavy, you know. And then, and I'm sitting calm as can be, and I'm watching everybody, you know, and I'm thinking, you know what, why is this happening? And you could just feel the intense glory of God, right? It's like a warm blanket just fell on everyone, you know. It's just so powerful and so intense. And it lasts for quite some time, you know. I reckon maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes or so. And then around 15 minutes later, you could feel the intensity of the glory of God lifting, you know. And then the folks that's hanging over the pews, you know, they're like, they get up. And ladies' faces, they got makeup on their, I mean, look at here. Their makeup is run all down their face. Man, every one of them. And the ones they had hair things in their hair, gone. There ain't a woman in that place with a hair thing that's all their hair is messed up like somebody ruffled their head. And the men that had ties on, their ties, they took their ties off, and I mean, everyone is a wreck. They look like they've been to a great big party and they're all drunk, but they're not drunk on alcohol. They're drunk on the power of God. See. And so, anyway, the church service ended, and we get in the car and we're driving home, right? And I'm sitting in the back seat, and I'm quiet as all my little sister and my other sister, they're on each side of me, and I'm quiet, and I'm looking at my dad's face in the rearview mirror, you know, and I'm looking at my mama in the rearview mirror, and I was scared. I wanted to ask them why they were crying so hard, you know, but I didn't want to get in trouble or nothing, and so I just held it in my heart. I held that whole scene in my heart and pondered it in my heart of what did it mean. But that was my very, very, very first experience with intense, powerful prayer. And do you know that, let's see here, that was, I reckon it was probably 33 years after that. I was in Nashville, Tennessee, and I had a church there, and it was a Catholic church that they built a new building, and we moved into their old building. It was nice. It's 17,000 square foot on 10 acres of land, you know. Real nice place. We lived there and everything. And my mama come to visit, and my aunt come to visit. And we're all praying in the church, you know. And one evening, the power of God fell, and we at midnight, the power of God fell at midnight. We was eating actually, and so it fell at midnight like what happened in that church when I was 7 years old. So 33 years later, what I saw at 7 years old, I saw again. But I was a 40-year-old man. And the power of God fell on our congregation, knocked everybody slap out. They fell. We was fixing to eat a steak dinner. I had cooked steaks for everyone. And I was fixing to eat, and one feller said, his name's Elmer, he said, "Pastor, why don't you pray for the groceries?" I said, "No, I don't. I already prayed for it. Let's just eat." And he said, "No, just pray for it." He said, "I can't eat till you pray." So I said, "Father," and then heaven came down, knocked everybody out on the ground, and for a couple hours. And I reckon about 2:30, 3 o'clock, we was able to eat our food, but it was cold then, we had to microwave it, you know. And that day, from that day, that night, when the power of God hit our congregation, we had been praying and praying and praying as a congregation. And that night, when the power of God hit our congregation, look at here, we started having, the next morning, folks showed up at the church door at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning from Missouri. with their demon-possessed children, talking about God sent an angel in the middle of the night, woke me up. This is what the mama said to me. I said, what you doing here? She said, God woke me up in the middle of the night. An angel shook my bed and told me to get my demon-possessed kid and bring him to this church right here, and he would set him free. Woo, I'm telling you the gospel truth. And I'm like, come on in, you know, hey, whatever. Go into the church and pray. So they went on into church and they're praying. And the Lord, sure enough, set the family free, and other people came. I saw a lady crawling. I saw a lady crawling because she couldn't walk. I mean, I'm telling you, she had her nurse with her. Then the lady gave her the walker, and where she was able to use the walker and come on into the building. And I'm watching her come on into the building. It took her 30 minutes to get out of her car and walk into the building. And it was at 4 o'clock that afternoon, and we had church that night. And look here, at 7 o'clock that night, the power of God fell in the congregation. And that lady that had her nurse that had MS that couldn't walk, I saw her crawl on the floor talking about prayer, okay? I don't know who this lady was, never seen her in my life, but I saw that woman crawl on the floor in the congregation, come up front, and for prayer. And my wife and I, and there's a whole line of people, my wife and I, we're praying for people. And we get to her, and I'm like, oh my goodness, you know, I didn't want to pray for her, to be honest with you, because I didn't think God would do anything. And I didn't want to be embarrassed. And so I went over her. You understand what I'm saying? I went around her. And as I went my hand over her head, because I didn't want to pray for her, she grabbed my hand and put it on her head. And when she did that, the power of God hit her, and that woman jumped straight up off the ground and took off running around the congregation. Oh my goodness, man, I was just like shocked. And then she's jumping up and down. And then she's all excited. And then she comes over to me. She's like, can I read your Bible? Can I read your Bible? I'm like, sure. I said, why? She said, because I want to see if my eyes are healed, because I think my eyes are healed. And she started reading out of my Bible. I said, well, what was wrong? She said, I couldn't read any words unless they were like 4 to 6 inches. The words had to be 4 inches big for her to read. Look at here, for her to read, and now she's reading out of my Bible. Then she's talking about, I said, well, what else happened to you? She said, I've been bedridden for 6 years. I said, and why? She said, because I have MS. And she said, and I've been eating applesauce and baby food for 6 years. And oh man, my heart broke then, you know. And I said, you know what? I got a steak left over from last night. Would you like it? She said, yeah. And so we all left the sanctuary, and we went into the kitchen, and I got her a steak and the ladies got her some tater salad and some green beans with my wife had made those that had bacon in with it with some almonds. Ooh, it was mighty fine, and some onions. And I heated up her a steak that I had grilled over wood, and I said, would you like some Heinz 57 with it? She said, yes, sir. So I put some Heinz 57 beside it, and that lady ate the whole, big old steak, man. She ate the whole thing. She dumped Heinz 57 all over it, and she ate the whole meal. And she said, you got any ice cream? And right across the street was a store. So somebody ran across the street and come back and gave her a spoon and gave her the whole thing to her head, man. She dipping in that, and she ate that ice cream till she was slap full. And then we went back into the sanctuary and just hung out and I don't know, prayed together or whatever. Oh, and so many things happened from prayer, you know. The day after that, this guy comes over and he's like, and his hand is broken. And his bone's sticking out of his hand like this right here, right? You could see it. And I'm like, what happened to you? He said, my girlfriend and I got in a fight, and I got drunk and everything. And he said, I punched the brick wall across the street. at the grocery store. And he said, and I